Hello, welcome to more yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you are having a good day. And if you're not, that's cool too. Bad days happen often, and it's all good. Um, one of the things that we're going to be doing today is a breath work, and it's called Breath of Joy, and it's really fun, and or at least it can be, and I hope that you enjoy it. Um, But as with all sort of pranayama or breathwork practices, don't do it if it's triggering, right? Or if it doesn't feel good. I have asthma and I find that it feels just fine. But of course, do what you need to do. Anyway, let's play with a little bit of that and a little bit of some other stuff, and let's see what happens. I'm going to always suggest that you have blocks or something that can bring the floor up to you. I know they're an investment though, so if you think, it's not really worth it, don't worry about it. You don't have to buy them, right? You can use books or even like tinned tomatoes or something like that. I also really like having something to kneel on for a bit of cushioning, just because my floor is hard. And my mat is okay, it's quite thick, but it just feels better on my body to use the cushioning. So there you go, right? I want to be able to practice yoga for the rest of my life, not just for a few years. So let's start lying down. If you're comfortable there, right? If you'd prefer to stay seated, then stay seated. You might choose to lie down on your side or even on your belly, in fact. But otherwise, join me on your back. Your legs could be bent or straight. You could take a butterfly position with the legs, really anywhere that feels good for you. And then for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then continue breathing however you need to. Right? However feels best today. Could be in and out through your nose, maybe it's in and out through your mouth. Doesn't really matter. Just breathe how it works best for you today. And as you're breathing, I want you to imagine that you're filling up your torso, almost as if your breath is water, like you're pouring water into a vessel. And so the breath starts at the bottom, right? It pours into the bottom of the abdomen and then slowly starts to fill all the way up to the top of the chest. And then maybe you exhale and release the breath in the opposite way. Maybe that just seems weird and you're like, how come I release the breath? Don't worry about it. Just exhale. But picture, right? Visualize pouring the breath in from the abdomen up to the ribs and up to the chest. And then exhale, let it all go. It doesn't have to be a really slow breath at all. Just it doesn't have to be really deep. Just enough that you can fit in that picture, that visualization. Last couple breaths here. And at the end of your next exhale, let go of the visualization. Return to your natural breath. And start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. A little wiggle of the fingertips or toes. A little rock of your head from side to side. Or maybe a big yawning stretch. Maybe an overhead morning stretch. And then bring your feet to the floor. Join me on your back if you're not there already. And take your feet mat width apart. So quite a bit wider than your hips, probably. And let's do a little windshield wiper of the knees from side to side. Of course, I've positioned myself in such a way that I'm going to knock over my bookshelf, but that's okay. The next time your knees are over to the left, pause there and see how this feels. Maybe it just feels kind of nice and gentle, getting a little bit into that top of the thigh, top of the hip on the right side. This might be where you want to stay. You could reach the right arm back up and to the right. If you'd like to deepen it even more, then flex the left ankle and gently cross it over top of the right thigh, or not right on the knee, just above the right knee. Now here you might just hang out, letting gravity do its thing, or you could squeeze the bum on the right side to lift that hip up, getting a bit deeper now, into the hip, into the thigh, as well as getting this cool rotation through the spine. Not a huge rotation, obviously, just a little bit. Last couple breaths here. And it's more of a twist through the hips and the pelvis than it is through the spine. And then if your ankle is hooked over top, unhook it. Come back to center, a couple little windshield wipers, one direction then the other. And the next time your knees are over at the right, pause there. Again, different side can be a totally different experience. So maybe this just feels like it's enough on this side. Maybe you reach the left arm back up and to the left, or gently hook the right ankle over top of the left thigh. And maybe it feels good to hang out here. Maybe you want to squeeze the bum on the left side to get a more active release. Go wherever you need to go. And if at any point you feel pain or something weird in your left knee, then go back a step. And then unhook the ankle if it's hooked. Inhale back to center, or a little windshield wiper opposite direction. And then bring your feet into a hip width stance. So the knees are still bent. The feet are flat on the floor, as I said about hip width, and close enough into your bum that you can tickle your heels with your fingertips. Ideally, your feet will be parallel. It's hard to see unless you have a mirror on your ceiling, right? And that's okay. But try to imagine that your feet aren't too far turned out or aren't too far turned in. And the feet won't be touching, but they're also not going to be super wide. So you probably have to reach maybe around your bum to find the heel rather than the heel being wider than your bum. Okay, press the heels into the floor. Inhale, lift your pelvis and spine up and away. So bridge pose. Now you might be quite low down. You might be quite a bit higher today. Just go where you need to go. You might choose to walk onto the outside edge of the shoulders, maybe even clasp your hands behind your back. And then notice if your knees are really winging out to the side, right? Then you're maybe not activating the glutes quite as much as you can. So squeeze the bum, draw the thighs back into neutral. So your knees will never touch in bridge. Thighs might, that's just a body shape thing, but the knees will never touch. Keep pressing the hips up to the sky. Keep breathing here. Going to be here a little bit longer. And then on your exhale, slowly lower down to the floor. Heel until your feet out mat width apart again. And this time let your knees hang in toward each other. So just getting a little release for the sacrum, for the low back. All right, and then draw your knees into your chest. Take a little rock from side to side. Massaging out mid-back or low back. Maybe your knees are a little bit further away. You're getting more into the pelvis. And just go where you need to go. And then maybe you grab the backs of the thighs and start to do some playful rocks and rolls up and down the spine. Maybe you pause on the sit bones, maybe you roll forward, maybe you flop it back, and that's okay. If that doesn't feel good, roll to one side and press yourself up, and we'll meet on hands and knees. So eventually, setting up with your knees underneath your hips, toes can be tucked or untucked, and then hands out or shoulder width apart or wider. Spread your fingers nice and wide. And on your inhale, lift your tailbone, hollow through the lower back, broaden through your collarbones. Exhale, round through your spine. Really press the floor away. Inhale into cow. Exhale, round into cat. And you may wonder, like, don't we do this in almost every single one of your classes? I'm like, yeah, we do. It's really, really good movement for the spine, the shoulders, the hips. And getting into the body a little bit differently. Maybe take a little wag of the tail from side to side. Right, if there's other natural movement, feel free to go where you need to go. If you happen to be pregnant, this is one of the best things that you can do for even a couple minutes every day. Keeps the hips loose, keeps the low back loose, keeps the baby spun in the right direction. Last couple breaths, moving however you need to here. Okay, and then slowly come back to center. Little draw of belly button to spine. We're going to do a bit of single knee balancing stuff. So if you want to bring a chip foam block or padding underneath your left knee, you can even double up your mat, right? If you'd like a little bit more padding. And then come back to your sort of quadruped position. So reach the right leg back behind you. Now you might choose to keep your toes on the floor. Little squeeze of the bum on that right leg. Or maybe you pick up the right leg. Notice I'm not lifting it too high, right? If you lift it so high that the low back starts to dip, right, you've gone too far. So press the low ribs up to the sky. When you look back, maybe you can even see your right toes. Option 1, or I guess this is option 2, is to stay here. Option 3 is to reach the left arm forward and up. Thumb to the sky, palm to the right. Press the floor away from you actively with the right hand. Now, can you see your left hand in your, or arm in your peripheral vision? If so, can you try to bring it up and out of the peripheral vision? Last couple of breaths here. Okay, bring your left hand back down to the floor if it's there, and then step the right toes back. So we're back to this sort of extended position. Kickstand your left foot out to the side a little bit. Bring your left hand forward and in, and then on your inhale, start to peel open to the right. So modified side plank on the left side. Right arm might start to reach up to the sky, or you could draw big windmills here. Some of you might play with more sort of side bends and hip lifts. Maybe you lift the top leg up, right? Really just going where you need to go. There might be a grab of the top foot that's in your sort of movement vocabulary. Go where you need to go. Last couple breaths here. And then bring that top leg down if it's lifted. Bring your right hand back to the floor. Swivel back to neutral. Now this one's a little bit tricky to get into, but it feels quite good once you're there. With your right leg extended behind you, now cross it over to the left slightly. Walk your upper body forward and also over to the left. Okay, so your right leg is crossed over to the left, your upper body is over to the left. And then you might stay up high on your hands or come down to forearms, or maybe forearm on one side, fingertips on the other side. But the idea is that you're getting one long line through the right side of the body, from your pinky fingers or finger all the way to the heel on the right side. Really great stretch for the lats, multifidus, QL, triceps maybe even. And then slowly, it's wobbly, I know, bring yourself back to center. Bring your right knee back down to the floor. Let's take a little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then we'll do all that on the opposite side. So if you're using padding, switch it over to the right side. Fingers spread nice and wide again. And then step your left leg back behind you. Right, notice that it's not droopy, it's quite active. Squeeze the bum on that left leg. Option 1 is to stay here. Option 2 is to de-weight that left leg. Now again, look back. Maybe you can see your toes. If their leg is lifted so high that you're dipping into the low back, think of bringing your heel in line with your hip and press the low ribs up to the sky. Next option, maybe bring that left hand in a little bit, and then right arm reaches forward and up, thumb to the sky, palm to the left, and then press the low ribs up to the sky a little bit more. Reach that right arm up and out of your peripheral vision. Keep squeezing the top of the thigh on the lifted leg. Lots and lots of isometric work here going on, fighting against gravity. Surprisingly challenging core work. And then bring your right hand back down, left toes to the floor. Kickstand your right foot now out to the side a little bit. Right hand comes forward and in slightly, and then start to open up to the left. So modified side plank on the left hand side. Maybe you reach up with that top arm or start drawing big sweeping shapes. You could be on your fist if that feels better, on your wrists or even fingertips here. Maybe you de-weight that top leg, right? Oh, sometimes some side bends here feel really good, or some sort of grab of the top foot. Go wherever you need to go. Maybe you're just working the balance, right? Working the strength. Last couple breaths. And then slowly bring your left hand back to the floor. Turn back to neutral. Bring that right shin back. Okay, so we're back here in this position. Now cross the left leg back to the right, slightly, not super far. Otherwise it'll be too wobbly. Walk the upper body forward and then also over to the right. Now again, you might choose to stay up on your fingertips or come down to forearms, maybe forearm on one side, fingertips on the other, but the idea is that you're trying to get now into the left side of the body. Sometimes one side doesn't feel as tight as the other, and that's cool. Last breath here. All right, slowly come back to hands and knees. Remove any padding out from underneath of you if you wish. Little wiggle or cat and cow, you might stay here, moving and grooving. You might choose to take child's pose instead, whether the knees are wide or together. Or maybe you choose to take downward facing dog for a few breaths, right? Go where you need to go. And try to find your breath again. You might be in movement, you might be in stillness. If you're in child's pose, press yourself up either to hands and knees or to downward facing dog. And then look forward, knees bent. On your exhale, take as many steps as you need to come forward into your standing forward fold. So today, if you'd like a little bit more support, you could rest your elbows on your knees or thighs, or you might use blocks underneath your hands, bringing the floor up to you. Maybe you want more traction on the spine, you can clasp opposite elbows with hands, or maybe even interlace your hands behind your back, so long as it doesn't feel gnarly on your shoulders. And make sure that there's a micro bend in the knees, right? Micro bend or even a deep bend. But in particular, you don't want them hyperextended backwards, right? Even if it feels like that's easy and it doesn't hurt, trust me, eventually that will be the wrong place for your body to go. Last couple breaths here. And then release your arms if they're bound with fingertips to your shins or the earth or blocks. Inhale, little partway lift, belly button to spine. Exhale, let it all go. Couple more on your own time, on your own breath. A little partway lift and exhale, release. And then slowly start to roll up to standing, one vertebra at a time. Knees bent the entire time and head heavy so that you're not leading with the chin, right? We're not in this position. Chin stays tucked. So, and eventually all the way up to standing. A couple loops of your shoulders, up, back, and down. Little wiggle, noodle, or release. Awesome. Take your knees bent. Take your knees bent. Bend your knees. Take your feet hip width apart. And let's just do some hip circles. So just getting a little bit loosey-goosey here. And then come back to center. Okay, here we are, standing, ready for breath of joy. So remember at the start when we were lying down, I did that sort of imagining that you're pouring air or water into your torso, first into the belly, then into the ribs, then into the upper chest. So breath of joy has a 3-part inhale followed by a big exhale. And it's as if with each sniff or each inhale, you're filling up your torso from the base to the chest. Don't worry about that part so much. Just know that it's 3 inhales in a row before a big exhale. And the inhale, it's like you're smelling the most glorious thing in the world, whether it's like freshly baked bread or cut grass or your first coffee in the morning or something like that. And there are arms that go with it too. So on the first inhale, you sweep the arms forward. Second inhale, arms sideways. Third inhale, arms all the way up. And on your exhale, you'll fold forward and sweep the arms behind you, exhaling through the mouth. So if you know it, you want to join in with me right away, go ahead. Otherwise, watch once, and then we'll do it a few times together. Okay, so 3-part inhale. Exhale. 2 more times. And then slowly come back up to standing. Whew. Eyes open or closed. Notice whatever you notice. Feel whatever you feel. Heart rate's probably elevated. You might be feeling a little bit high from a bit of breath retention. And then flip your eyelids open, shake it out a little bit. Anyway, that's breath of joy. Sometimes it can be a really nice way to start your day if you want to. Feels goofy, makes me smile. Let's come back down to the floor. Inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Exhale, melt into your forward fold. Fingertips to shins. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Okay, heel into your feet a little bit wider here. Again, this is a fantastic place to bring something underneath your hands, particularly if the floor just feels really far away today. And then you have a few options. First one is to take your peace fingers and wrap them around your big toes with the fingers pointing in. Knees bent enough that you can achieve this. Or maybe you step the palms of the hands underneath the soles of the feet so the toes are right up at the creases of your wrist. You can even wiggle your toes and massage your wrists a little bit. Again, elbows bent. Maybe you have a binding practice on one leg at a time. If so, go where you need to go. And then wherever you are, knees bent enough that you can draw your elbows wide and then glide your shoulders down your back. So now there's tension, there's retraction here through the upper body. Maintaining that, maybe then you start to straighten the back of the legs a little bit. So you're playing with this balance between activation and release, but the release also feels like tension. Last couple breaths here. Okay, gently release your hands. Fingertips to shins. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, let it go. 2 more. And then heel and toe your feet apart, maybe mat width apart, maybe even a little bit wider, toes turned out slightly. And then on your inhale, sit down into your squat or malasana. I almost never show you this from the side, but it's an interesting one because often we tend to just kind of hang out at the bottom, right? And we're not super active. Now you can always choose to bring something underneath your hips to give yourself a little bit of lift today. But I want you to find that lift, right? That buoyancy. So if you had to stand up, you could. Wrap your shoulders onto your back, lift through the heart. And this is challenging. These are all goals to get to, right? This long spine. Maybe you stay here, pressing your elbows into your knees. Maybe you reach your arms up to the sky in front of you. Maybe you choose to clasp your hands behind you. Last couple breaths. Now, if the soles of the feet are flat here, can you de-weight your big toes so that you're not rolling into the arches of the feet? Last breath. And then bring your hands down in front of you and kind of duck walk your knees down so that you reach hands and knees. Little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then shift to your hips on one side. And then you might choose to do a Pilates style roll down here, tucking the tailbone under and slowly roll down, or use your hands, come down however you need to, but eventually making your way onto your back. Draw your knees into your chest, little rock from side to side. And then bring your feet to the floor. Let's do a very quick figure 4 stretch. So cross the right ankle over top of the left thigh. This might be enough for you here. Or maybe you start to draw your legs toward you. Maybe you just use the muscles of your core. Maybe you have a strap that you can bring behind your thigh or hold on to your tights or your shorts. Maybe you interlace your hands behind the back of that left thigh. You could rock a little bit from side to side. Last couple breaths here. Nothing too long. And then when you're ready, release, shake it out, and then we'll switch sides. So this time, left ankle crosses over top of the right thigh. Maybe your right foot stays on the floor. Maybe you start to draw your legs toward you. Again, you could rock a little bit from side to side or interlace your hands behind the right thigh. Maybe take the opposite interlacing of the hands just to balance that out. Sometimes it feels really weird. There's one way that we're used to doing it. You could be still, you could rock a little bit from side to side. And then slowly release your legs, shake them out a little bit, and then draw your knees wide out toward your shoulders or armpits. And again, this is a great place to stay. Or if you'd like to take happy baby, kick the feet up to the sky. You can grab the backs of the thighs somewhere along your legs or your ankles or your feet. Maybe eventually the soles of the feet come parallel with the ceiling. Maybe eventually the thighs come parallel with the ceiling and the shins are perpendicular to the floor. You might rock a little bit from side to side or extend one leg or the other. It really doesn't matter. Just go where you need to go. And if there's anything else you feel like you need before your rest today, please feel free to go where you would like to. Otherwise, start to think about where you'd like to end, whether it's flat on your back, legs bent or straight. You might choose to rest on your side or in child's pose or as seated meditation, right? Anywhere that you can be at ease. And there's certainly no rush to get there, particularly if you're still doing something else. Maybe pause the video or just let it run out. And then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, let it all go. 2 more. And then let go of your breath control, which can be tricky after half an hour of really controlling the breath. As much as possible, return to your natural breath. Notice if you're holding any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in the neck or the jaw, and if so, let that go as well. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. And thoughts may come and go. Acknowledge them without judgment, but let them go. And let them drift by you like leaves on the wind. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.